Hey YouTube, Kira Twig here, bringing you all an update to my Volcanic Yugioh deck profile for post-Soulburning Volcano. With the newest Duelist pack, I wanted to update all three of the decks that we got from the set, but I figured I'd start and just go in order from the sets in which they were released for the Yu-Gi-Oh series, starting off with Axel Brody's Volcanic deck. We did get a lot of support, but what I love is that the play style of the deck relatively stays the same overall, setting up your volcanic monsters in your graveyard and having the new boss monster, Volcanic Emperor, as another easy special summon, being able to utilize the graveyard even for your Blaze Accelerator banishes for this card. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the volcanic monsters, we're running one copy of the new Volcanic Emperor. It cannot be normal summoned or set. It must be special summoned from your hand or graveyard by banishing 3 pyro monsters or 1 Blaze Accelerator card from face up on the field and or graveyard. You can only special summon Volcanic Emperor once per turn, and when summoned this way, you can inflict 500 damage to your opponent for each banished pyro monster. Then you can set 1 Volcanic Trap directly from your deck, and each time your opponent special summons a monster, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. So having the setup for one of our Volcanic Traps definitely gives us options for some of the newer cards that we run, like Volcanic Emission and then also Volcanic Inferno. Having both of these cards as set options, but also just being able to utilize the new Volcanic Blaze Accelerator for the special summon of our boss monster, and for the fact that we can easily search this card out with our Volcanic Trooper is why we're also just running one card to begin with. You don't really need a second copy. If you were to run one, you can try taking out one of these staple spots in the deck, but you really only need the one copy to run. For the other new monster, we're running 3 copies of Volcanic Rimfire. If this card is sent to the graveyard, you can activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect of Rimfire once per turn. You can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Volcanic Rimfire. And you can banish 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your face up on the field or graveyard. And if you do, place 1 Blaze Accelerator continuous spell from your hand or deck face up onto the field. So then you have the option to then swap out some of your other Blaze Accelerators, like your Blaze Accelerator Reload or your Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. Having to set up for this new spell is definitely useful. We also do run the original Blaze Accelerator, so you have all these cards to switch in and out, and then also the graveyard setup depending on which effect you need the most for your Volcanic Rimfire. Now, I do want to run 3 copies of Volcanic Trooper. This is one of the ultra rares in the spot, which you can replace for either Royal Firestorm Gods or your Volcanic Hammerer, whichever one you want to run. But 3 copies of this card is definitely needed. If this card is normal or special summon, you can add 1 Volcanic card from your deck to your hand, except for Volcanic Trooper. You can discard 1 card to special summon 1 bomb token onto the field, Pyro Fire, level 1 with 1,000 attack, 1,000 defense to your opponent's field, and each time one is destroyed, its controller takes 500 damage. You can only use each effect of Volcanic Trooper once per turn. So this is just a search card. Being able just to add a Volcanic card gives us a good variety of search, whether we just use this card to then search out a Volcanic Rimfire or to search out even our boss monster, Volcanic Emperor. You have all these options available to it, and then even just the discard cost of being able to discard 1 card to special summon the bomb token means we can also discard the card we just added off of it to get that token set up on the field as well. And since you can special summon cards like Volcanic Emperor from the graveyard, it makes it all the easier to use those resources once you discard them off of Volcanic Trooper. I also run the 3 copies of Volcanic Scattershot. If this card is sent to the graveyard, inflict 500 damage to your opponent. If this card is sent to the graveyard by the effect of a Blaze Accelerator card, you can send 2 Volcanic Scattershots from your hand and or deck to the graveyard to destroy all monsters your opponent controls. So this is the destruction card, but also on top of that, when you send the first initial Scattershot, and then if you're able to send the other 2, since it was sent off of a Blaze Accelerator, that's 1,500 points of damage to your opponent, on top of being able to destroy their entire field without having to use any monsters that you may have on your field to begin with. And for more search power, we're also running 3 copies of Volcanic Rocket. When this card is summoned, you can add 1 Blaze Accelerator card from your deck or graveyard to your hand. So the recycle power from the graveyard also comes in handy, because then you could just recycle the ones you may have already used if you don't have any targets to search in your deck as well, thanks to this card. And it's just when it's summoned as well, so even if it's special summoned, you get the search off of Volcanic Rocket, and it's not a once per turn either, so you can get multiple searches thanks to this card also. And then for the rest of the main deck monsters, just 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, just being the hand trap of choice, being a fire attribute as well. We do run some of the Sunlight Wolf setup, so if you can get the Link monster setup and then special summon to the zones that this card points to, you get the playstyle being able to add back the Ash Blossom from the graveyard, not being able to activate the same turn, but it's very useful with cards like Volcanic Trooper to special summon a bomb token onto the field, and then choosing where to special summon it. So if you have the Sunlight Wolf set up on the field, you can special summon that token and then make use of the add back to grab a hand trap back to your hand also. Moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. You activate this card by sending 1 Blaze Accelerator from your hand, deck, or face up on the field to the graveyard. You can only control 1 Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. Once per turn during your main phase, you can special summon 1 Volcanic monster from your hand, and once per turn you can target 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, send 1 level 1 Pyro from your deck to the graveyard to destroy that monster. So then this card can be used to set up your Volcanic Rimfire in the graveyard, but also having the target for the bomb token that you have on your opponent's field, thanks to Volcanic Trooper, as the target of destruction. So even if you go first against them, you'll have that monster target to destroy and then set up that other special summon Volcanic monster, being able to send the level 1 Pyro, which will be our Volcanic Rimfire, to then also set up for the banish effect in the graveyard. And then I also run the 1 additional Blaze Accelerator. This is so we can have the additional targets for our Volcanic Blaze Accelerator, being able to send the Blaze Accelerator from our hand, deck, or face on the field to the graveyard for this card's activation. And then we also have the option, so then once you activate the Blaze Accelerator, you then use the additional recycle power, so then you can summon out your cards like Volcanic Rocket to add the Blaze Accelerator you just sent to the graveyard back to your hand, and then send off again if you have to activate another Volcanic Blaze Accelerator. And then also the 2 copies of Foolish Burial Goods, just more send power off of this card for your spell and traps, especially with the trap setup for your banish from your Blaze Accelerator reload from the graveyard to then send 1 Volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard, which can also set off the Volcanic Scattershot play, and then the 2 additional sends from that card also. And then also the 2 copies of Pot of Prosperity to set up the rest of the spells in the deck. This card is used to then just get some of the needed cards depending on the banish. We don't really use too many cards from our extra deck, so you have plenty of banish targets thanks to this card to then just reveal the particular card you may need off the top of your deck. Whether you banish 3 cards, you may just hit that, 1 card you need off of the banish thanks to this card to start your plays. Moving on now to the traps. I run 3 copies of Blaze Accelerator Reload. Its name becomes Tri-Blaze Accelerator while in the spell and trap card zone. During the main phase, you can send 1 Volcanic card from your hand to the graveyard. If you do, draw 1 card. You can only use this effect of Blaze Accelerator Reload once per turn. And during the main phase, you can banish this card from your graveyard to send 1 Volcanic card from your deck to the graveyard. So one of the better targets with Foolish Burial Goods. And then once it's in the graveyard, you can banish it to then send your Volcanic Scattershot, having that additional effect to send the additional 2. So you have the destruction of your opponent's card. And it is a trap, so you can also activate this just during the main phase, during your opponent's turn as well, to send that Volcanic card. So as long as this card's in the graveyard, you have that destruction play on your opponent's turn as well that they'll have to work around. And then also the 2 copies of Volcanic Emission. You activate one of these effects, but you can only use each effect once per turn. Take 1 Volcanic monster from your deck, either add to your hand or special summon it, ignoring its summoning conditions, but return it to the hand during the end phase, or target a Pyro monster on the field and inflict damage to your opponent equal to that monster's original attack, or if you target a monster you control, the damage is halved. So this can target one of the tokens you give to your opponent for that burn damage, but the main play will be to summon out your Volcanic Emperor onto the field, restricting some of your opponent's special summons off of this card as well, because then they'll go for more burn damage every time they summon a monster, and if they don't destroy it, it'll be bounced back to your hand for you to then special summon properly the following turn. And then also the 1 copy of Volcanic Inferno. This card is searchable, so that's why I'm only running the 1 copy of it. When your opponent activates a monster effect on the field, you can banish 1 Pyro monster from your graveyard to inflict 500 damage to your opponent. Then if you banish a Volcanic monster to activate this effect, you can negate the effect of that card also. And during your opponent's end phase, you can target up to 2 of your Volcanic monsters that are banished and or in your graveyard and place them on the bottom of the deck in any order. So we do banish a lot with this deck, so at least being able to have an answer in the form of Volcanic Inferno to add those cards back into our deck helps with the many cards we banish off of our own card effects to begin with for this card, for them, and also being in the graveyard. So we have the recycle power for some of the more important Volcanic cards also. And then also the 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, along with the Ash Blossom, I just find to be the suitable number for for the deck for the hand trap lineup. And then for more of the control aspect against our opponent, the 3 copies of Goes in Match. Like I said, we don't go into the extra deck much, but being able to restrict your opponent just to 1 attribute, and then also being able to potentially give them the 1 token on the field as well. So if you use your Volcanic Trooper to then give them that 1 token, and you activate Goes in Match during the standby phase, they'll be locked into just being able to summon out fire monsters, which can restrict a good number of decks in the game currently. And then also the 2 copies of Rivalry of Warlords. Once again, you really want to have too many monsters on your side of the field. You can only control 1 type of monster, which we really only run the Pyro monsters to begin with. So another one just to shut down your opponent, with the last of the cards also being 2 copies of Summon Limit. At the most, you'll be summoning once or twice a turn, so all of these continuous traps can just shut down an opponent's plays completely, depending on what they may be using. And that is it for the main deck. We'll now move on to the extra deck. Along with the Pot of Prosperities running, the extra deck is mostly just consisted of generic monsters to run. So the 1 copy of Relinquish Anima, the 1 Almirage, the 1 Link Karibo, the 1 Heat of the Fire Charmer, the 1 Nightmare Cerberus, and the 1 Nightmare Phoenix. Along with the Sunlight Wolf, I would say this is one of the most important ones just for the recycle power this card has. The 1 IP Masquerena, the 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and the 1 Access Code Talker for the rest of the Link monsters. And then for the Xyz monsters, with having a good number of level 4 monsters in the form of Volcanic Rocket to summon out for its go-to normal summon. It really doesn't provide much else in the graveyard, so I decided to go with rank 4s for the remainder of the card. So 1 Abyss Dweller, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Exciton Knight, 1 Baguska, and the 1 Zeus to finish off the Xyz monsters. If you don't see yourself going into them and you need more of the Link lineup, these cards can just be the potential cards you banish off of Pot of Prosperity also. And then as for some of the go-to plays in the deck, it all comes down to the setup, but you can have a good majority of these cards ready to go, just for, depending on what you open up in your hand. Volcanic Trooper can set off a lot of these plays, just being able to normal summon this card out, and then add a Volcanic card from your deck to your hand. So then you can add your Volcanic Rimfire off of this card, and then being able to use the other effect with your Volcanic Trooper for the discard of this card. So you can add the Volcanic Monster, which you did off of Rimfire, and then with this card, you can discard 1 card, so you can discard the Rimfire to the graveyard to special summon the Bomb token to your field. So the special summon of the card to your opponent's field sets up a token on their field, and then each time 1 is destroyed, the controller takes 500 damage. But then you also set up the Rimfire in your graveyard. So you can banish this card from your graveyard to send a Volcanic monster from your deck to the graveyard, except for Volcanic Rimfire. So you have either that effect, or you can banish 1 Blaze Accelerator to place 1 Blaze Accelerator continue spell from your hand or deck face up in your spell and trap card zone. So depending on which one you want to use, it all determines on whether you have the other Blaze Accelerator face up on the field or in the graveyard as well. So with this first effect, you'll more than likely just go for the send of a Volcanic monster to the graveyard. So with the additional send, you have the 500 burn off a Scatter Shot, but it has to be sent with a Blaze Accelerator to send 2 different copies of this card. You can set up the Volcanic Emperor in the graveyard for that additional summon play, or you even have more of the relied plays to set up the special summon of an additional Volcanic monster off of this card. It all comes down to which one you may need for that play, but if you set up the Volcanic Emperor, then you just need the 1 additional Blaze Accelerator face up on your field for you to then be able to special summon this card or have that additional setup. If you have the token set up on the field as well, then you just need the trap that I mentioned before, Goes in Match, to set, and you can pass turn there, activating this, and then since your opponent has the 1 fire token, they're locked into just fire attribute to begin with, thanks to the Volcanic Trooper that you set up beforehand. If you have the additional send and setup, it can also give you an additional special summon play. If you have the search for your additional card and your monster, let's say you start off with the Volcanic Rocket even for that summon, that can give you the additional search of your Blaze Accelerator. So then on top of the Blaze Accelerator that you can activate as well, you can then use the banish instead of the Volcanic Emperor from the graveyard for your Rimfire to banish and send this to set up the new Volcanic spell, being the Volcanic Blaze Accelerator as well, which then after you activate this, if you did this on the first turn with that summon of your Volcanic Rocket, you can use the Volcanic Accelerator to summon out the Volcanic Trooper from your hand to begin with, and then you can do the same play beforehand for the search and setup. So then this card can give you the additional search that you needed for that play. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. Like I said, I'll be updating all of the decks from Soulburning Volcano, since I am definitely liking all three of them, so look forward to it. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe, and Kira Twig out.